An invitation from a great leader can alter the course of your life and work forever. That's what Harry Smith has done for me. So it's with great joy and gratitude that I introduce Harry to you, and as he takes us through how you can grow professionally and spiritually at the same time. He's an accomplished leader, but it started when he was 9. He was a paper boy earning money for the family at age 9, and he continued in that career all the way to age 20 while he was in college. As that route expanded, he grows everything. God uses him to grow things. And then as a public accountant in a 10-person firm, he had a client that he was representing, and God used that to call him to Memphis when a banker right here in Memphis said, you know, Miss Schilling will trust you to run this business. And so Harry came to Memphis, maybe against better judgment, as you're about to hear. And he did so, and he was faithful in that business, growing Schilling Motors, taking care of some real problems with the business. He'll say he's over his head, but he kept going, and somehow a motor business became a real estate business as he was the chairman and CEO, and with Boyle developed Schilling Farms. That's 3 careers. You're counting with me? And then fourthly, and maybe most importantly, just giving back. That's what he's done for me and for over 30 boards in our city, 3 universities at least, and then other boards, including the Christian Community Foundation, which is another place we serve together. So I introduce you to Harry. There's a lot to learn here. You're going to hear from Harry how important 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was in his development. And then also, he was challenged to write a book, and he wrote one much simpler, much easier to understand about his career and his 9 principles of doing business called Driven to Deliver. So I recommend that too. But let's listen to Harry.
First of all, I want to thank Howard for having enough courage to invite me to come and be exposed to his group of people, you know. And I am thankful to be here, and thank y'all for coming and being willing to listen to me. My wife gave me instructions when I left. She said, speak up, even though you're a little hoarse. She said, speak up where they can hear you good. So I hope y'all can hear me okay. Y'all, I am a blessed guy. I've got so much to be thankful for. I grew up in Alabama and moved to Memphis about 40-something years ago, and have had unusual experiences in a lot of ways. My mentor here was a guy named Herbert Ray, and some of you older guys may remember Herbert. He's been deceased now several years, but he was a mentor to me, and it helped me in so many ways. And one of the things I wanted to tell you about was this book I wrote. I wanted to do something for my grandboys because they were all small when Rex and I were coming up in the car business, and but I could never get it put together. And Dean Grover at the University of Memphis in the Fogelman Center, he asked me if I would prepare a lecture on ethics, and so I told him I'd be glad to. And there's a course there called Strategic Management that everybody has to take before they can graduate. They take it their senior year. And so and there's about 4 or 5 classes each semester. And so for about 5 or 6 years, I did that, and it helped me put together the book I wanted to write. And I always said if I was going to have a book, it would be 3 things about it. 1 is it would be short. 2, it would have a lot of white space. And 3, it had big print. And I think if nothing else, as y'all glance through it or read it or whatever you'll do, you'll find out that it's not a deep book, it's not a long book, and it's fairly easy to read. And in the book, I kind of finish up with what I call my 9 life habits. And I'm not even going to try to talk about those right now unless we get through a little earlier, and I think we will. But I'm going to jump right on in and talk about the 7 habits. When I came to Memphis in 1980, I was so far over my head. I think if I had probably had known how much over my head I was, I'm not sure I would have come. But but I did, and I had a 15-year-old screaming daughter and an unhappy wife, and but they managed through it, and we made it, and then Rex came and joined us, and we're all been a team together since then. And so as I was putting these things together, once the first year was the hardest in our business. We had to put our largest company into bankruptcy. But after that, I had never had any formal management experience with people. We had 10 people in our accounting firm, and we had 1,000 employees here when I came over. And so I wanted to find some kind of material that I could use to take our people through that would draw us closer together and would help us more as a management team. And that's when I ran across the book, 7 Habits by Highly Effective People. Now you notice the book is not called 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, it's effective people. And so I don't know, if you have one without the other, but I think you can. And the book starts out with talking about Covey and talking about it's a very deep book. So I would encourage you, if you want to read it, to be patient and read it slowly and maybe read it a couple of times. I probably read it 5 or 6 different times, and I get something new out of it every time that I read it. But so I want to go through the 7 habits just kind of briefly with you. The first one is let me back up. When we're born dependent on people. We're little babies. We have milk and food, and then as we get older, we should be maturing and growing older. And right now, I'm watching little babies go through this time, and they are very dependent right now. And but so there's a triangle in your book that you'll see when you look at it later, and it starts off with the first habit being proactive, and it moves you from being dependent to being independent. And then the next 3 habits take you from being independent to interdependent. And the first one, in being proactive, there's a lot of things we just can't control in our life. And so being proactive is one of the things that's important. If you could pretend that there was a big circle on the wall up here, a big circle, and inside that big circle was a little bitty circle. And if you could pretend that big circle you don't have much control over, but that little circle you do. And it's like when Rex and I were in the car business, we had all kind of reasons, our salesman did, why business was not good when it wasn't. And if it was raining, it kept people in. If the sun was shining and it was cutting grass, it kept people out, And so people were our salesmen were looking for reasons not to be proactive. And that was one of the things we hoped that they would get from it. The second habit is to begin with the end in mind. And we used that to write our mission statement. And we spent because I had heard when I came over that everybody needs a mission statement, every company. And so we started writing our mission statement, and our little advisory board started it, but then we took it all the way through with all of our people. We'd have lunch meetings and we went through them. We spent 6 months working on that, and I wanted something real simple and short because I'm a pretty simple person. And when we were doing it, some of our people said, "Do you think our customers will be offended if we have the word Christian in it?" And some of our other people said, "No, I don't think so. I think they will appreciate and respect the fact that we have principles." And it was very few times that anybody ever said anything and made a comment about it. We told our salespeople they could put that on the back of their business card if they wanted to, but they didn't have to. It was completely up to them. And so that was our mission statement. Covey encouraged everybody read the book to write their own mission statement. And he tells a story about a man going to a funeral. And the man got to the funeral and he saw people that he knew. He saw friends, neighbors, people he worked with, his family. And he realized that he was attending his own funeral. And the question Covey asked was, if you knew people were coming to your funeral and was going to talk about you, what would you want them to say? And that's where he came in with his second habit, begin with the end in mind. Is think ahead of what you want people to say about you when you die and live your life in such a way that they can. And the third habit is the next one is put first things first. That happens to be my favorite one. It's a way of managing time. And you know, we have gone through several ways of managing time. One where you had notepads and you just made little notes, you know, and other ways of doing it. But his way is he has, and you'll see in the book when you look at it later, he's got what he calls 4 quadrants. And what he encourages you to do is to spend your time on things that are important but not urgent. And what we find ourselves doing is we work on things and spend time on things that aren't important and aren't urgent, like opening mail and answering telephone calls, you know, instead of working on relationships. You know, I believe that the most important thing in life is relationships. Our relationship with our Maker, with our family, with friends, people that we work with, and I think that's the most important relationship that we can have. So that is what Covey encourages you to do, is to spend your time on things that are important but not urgent. He thinks you should spend time doing things. Well, he thinks you should spend your time, first of all, with a calendar by the week. And like on Sunday night, put down on your calendar the things you got to do that week that are important. And most of those are going to deal with relationships. And then he encourages you to then fill it up with the things that aren't important. And he goes into that in pretty good detail. But if y'all are like me, it's hard to find balance, you know. But you know, there are times when you've got 3 or 4 things to do at one time. Y'all have been there. And it's choosing the one that's most important at the time. It could be different ones at different times. You know, it could be that you're supposed to take your little boy to a ball game, or it could be that you're supposed to take your wife out, or you got to go to work at night for some reason. But what it is that Covey tells a story about a man named E.M. Gray. He said that this man spent a big part of his life studying successful and effective people. And he said that he came up with a common denominator. He said it was people that knew how to put first things first. That if they had 3 or 4 things to do, that they knew how to pick the one that was most important at that particular time. And so I know y'all are just like me. You've got lots of times that you have more than one thing to do. And it's picking the one, again, that's the most important. Now the next one, Rex, unless I'm wrong, is your favorite one. Win-win. It's win-win, win-lose, lose-lose. There's several ways of winning and losing. But I remember Rex talking about his win-win. I don't know if he got it from his basketball or football days or what, because somebody does win and somebody does lose. But in business and in working, we want to try to have something that's that both sides win, and that's what makes a good deal. And the next habit is number 5, is seek first to understand and then to be understood. Sometimes we're wrong, and you've had things that have happened that you've thought about and you've got an opinion about, and all of a sudden you realize you're wrong and you see it in a different way. So when somebody disagrees with us on something, we need to be sure that we're right before we disagree real strongly. Once we have the privilege of listening to somebody, then we deserve to have the opportunity to get to explain our side. But listen to theirs first. And then number 6 is synergy. And synergy is, I think of it some as 1 + 1 = 3. Synergy is everybody working together. Most of the car dealerships that Rex and I had about 60 people working at the dealership. And we had a general manager at each one. And that general manager could only do so much. He was just one person. But it was those guys or ladies that could take their people and lead them and work together with them that did the best job and did a good job. So synergy's big, is working together with people. And then number 7, the last one, is it's got a big circle around all 6 of them. It's called sharpening the saw. And Covey says every day we should spend time with our quiet time, with exercising, eating the right kind of foods, reading some books, maybe just taking some time for ourselves. But we need to try to have a balanced life. Y'all have a hard time with balanced life? Anybody in here have trouble with stress? Does anybody here not have trouble with stress? When I was in public accounting, this is really serious and true. I had 2 knots on the back of my neck, and you could feel them. They were just knots, and it was stress. It was where I tried to put 12 hours worth of work into 10 hours. I didn't plan for the unexpected. And finally, I think it's when I got to be about 50, I said, there's nothing I can do about it up to now, but I'm going to change, and I'm going to be better balanced. And I did, and you know what? My knots went away. My knots are gone. Anybody ever had a knot on the back of their neck? Oh, yeah. Also, there was 3 bleeding ulcers along the way. And that helped encourage me to get more balanced. So that is Covey's 7 habits summarized. I do encourage you to read it. I tell people that it's my favorite book outside the Bible. It's deep for me. Some people can read it and not have any trouble picking it up real quick, but for me it really took a while. And now every time I read it, I get something else out of it. Okay, I've still got a few more minutes, so I'm going to go through just some highlights of things I've marked about the book I wrote. The thing I didn't start off with, I meant to, was Herbert Ray, my mentor, had 4 careers. He talked about what they were. And I don't know, I guess that's what made me kind of look back on my life and realize that I had 4 careers. My first one was carrying newspapers. I carried newspapers from the time I was 9 years old till I was 20 years old. And I went through school. Had a rural paper out, not when I was 9, but my mother, unfortunately, my mother and dad were divorced, and so she and I had a route out in the country. We went 40 miles a day carrying newspapers. And I learned a lot about people, about life, carrying papers. That was my first career. My second career was accounting. One of my customers was a professor at the University of North Alabama. He asked me what I was majoring in, and I told him I didn't know. And he encouraged me to major in accounting, and I did. And I got my CPA certificate, and I did it for 16 years until I moved to Memphis in 1980. And then for the next 25 years, Rex and I ran car dealerships. We bought some, we sold some, we cried over some. We had some interesting challenges operating car dealerships.
We ran some of them as nonprofits, didn't we?
We did. We did. We had some nonprofit. And you know, it's neat how God works. Being from an accounting background, I can't say that I was always happy being in the car business, but I did feel like it was where God had put me, and I didn't know it at the time, but in looking back over my life, I realized how God had been preparing me for the car business and also the bankruptcy that I had to go through, you know. And you know, I learned so many things about that from people when I was in accounting. I had a couple of clients that that didn't have a mentor or an accountability partner. And incidentally, if you don't have a mentor, I would encourage you to get one. Somebody that's got gray hair, somebody that thinks right, and then also an accountability partner. I said a mentor and an accountability partner. And the accountability partner could be somebody like your best friend, but somebody that would be honest with you and tell you what you want to hear. I mean, what you don't want to hear, maybe, but what you need to hear. And I had a couple that had good businesses. A couple of clients had good business, and they let themselves slip and compromise, and they ended up losing their business. And I've often wondered if they'd had a good accountability partner, if they would have survived that. Now, one thing that we have to do if we're an accountability partner to somebody is tell them the truth and to be honest. And that's hard to do sometimes because you don't want to hurt people's feelings, but you do want them to do it. You know, my wife is not a business person, but women have a sixth sense, and they are smart. And I advise all men to listen to their wives. My wife has said to me many times, when we first moved to Memphis, we walked at night. We lived over by the record club, and we walked at night around and ate at different restaurants. And I could talk to my wife about things, and she wouldn't talk about it to other people. But I would tell her about a situation I had with a manager, and she would, and that wasn't good. And she would say, well, did you tell them? And I said, well, I didn't have to tell them. They knew, you know, what they were doing. It wasn't right. And she said, well, you got to tell them. I almost got mad at her, you know. But I did what she suggested, and you know what? It worked. I found out that they were already expecting me to say it before I said it. And so I learned that from my wife. Miss Schilling was my business partner, the one I bought the company from. And she was not a business lady, but her advice to me was, Harry, always do what's right and everything will work out okay. And pretty good advice, isn't it? And then my uncle, when I graduated from college, he gave me a piece of advice. He said, always do more work than you get paid for, and you won't ever have any trouble. And y'all believe that to be true? You know, I don't know that today, I guess all of us older generation thinks the younger generation doesn't work as hard, but maybe you do. And I guess the younger generation now think the next generation doesn't work as hard. But we probably didn't work as smart as we needed to. All right. I got to tell y'all this one story, and then I'm going to quit and let you do the question and answers. If you asked Rex and me what was the hardest part of the car business, we would definitely say, without hesitation, it was dealing with the manufacturers. Back then especially, they could be mean. And I mean really, really mean. And they were forced to do things they didn't really want to do, but it was part of their job. And they were hard to get along with. But one time, we had a district manager in Memphis. Unfortunately, we wish they'd have been in Nashville or somewhere else, but they were in Memphis. So we had a lot of contact with them. And one day, the district manager and myself, we went to Atlanta to meet with the regional manager. And so we got over there and we got through early and we went out to the airport and we wanted some ice cream. So we asked the guy at the counter, where could we find some ice cream? And he said, well, if you go right down and turn right, and there's a place down there. And bring me some. And of course he was just kidding, you know, we thought he was. So we went down and got some ice cream and we said, let's get him some ice cream and take it to him. So we got some ice cream for him and took it back, took it up to the counter and gave it to him, and boy, he was shocked, you know. And so we went over and sat down and started eating our ice cream. And after a few minutes, he came over and he said, can I see your boarding pass for a minute, please? And we showed him our boarding pass and he gave it back and he went off. You know what he did?
First class. First class.
Upgraded us to first class. Hey y'all, a cup of ice cream, upgrade to first class. You know, I've tried that 10 times. Not really. But the point of some of that, I think, is being nice and kind to people. I could almost jokingly say moving to Memphis. But no, I would say it can be little things probably a lot of times. But it might be a meeting that you have at church. And you say, you know, I just don't want to go tonight. I'm tired, you know. But you really need to go because there's some important things going to be discussed. And it's having that willpower to go to the meeting that you really don't want to, rather than staying home and watching something on TV. So I'd say that would maybe be an example. We had a chaplain, company chaplain, that went around and talked to our people about once every week or two. He kept up with people that were sick and in the hospital, and he would keep Rex and me informed about it. And we would wait for opportunities like that to witness to our employees. I got one thing I want to close with. If y'all hadn't heard anything else, I want you to hear this, okay? Rex was going to work on his MBA. He was about 24 years old. And he told me, he said, Harry, they're having an EE banquet at church. You want to go to it? I said, well, what's the EE banquet? And he told me, I said, well, yeah, I'll go with you. And so, I don't know how many of you know, it stands for Evangelism Explosion. And so our church had just started about a year or two before. And so Rex and I went to the banquet. And we got there and we signed up for 13, 14 weeks, however long it lasted. And so every Tuesday we went. And I was at the time about 45 years old. And I'd been going to church all my life. And I knew lots of Bible verses and I knew lots of things. But I didn't know how to sit down with somebody and walk them through how to become a Christian. And he taught me how to do that. Yeah, and Rich kind of touched on it a while ago, but it's taking an ordinary conversation and making a Christian conversation out of it. And we've got some little tracts at our church that we have. You can know the answer, and it talks about exactly what you need to do to be saved. And I try to use these at restaurants some and different places. But, you know, as I get older, I become more and more convinced that God's got us here for one big reason, and that's to help people get saved. And so I sure don't always do like I'm supposed to. I'm doing better. And one thing about it too, when you get older, they say that guy he's getting old, you know. So you get by with more, you know, probably when you're older. But thank y'all for letting me come, and I appreciate Howard, what he's doing by setting this up and having it, and it's been a pleasure to be here.